Hello, friends. Dr. Renee Tucker here. Today, I wanted to tell you a story from the field. So, a real life story about what happened and how that is related to MRIs. Well, back in the day, when I was a young veterinarian, I used to feel sorry for myself, really, because there were not MRI machines around a lot. And then still, you have to drive fairly far. But back then, you had to, if you could even find one in your state, you had to drive far and they were very expensive. So I would run across these very subtle lamenesses, where you can kind of see it, but not really. Or sometimes there's no head bob whatsoever, and you're just sort of kind of guessing. And I thought, oh, if only there was an MRI and my people could afford it, then we'd have all the answers and I could fix things. But then one day I got my wish. I was called out to see about 13, 14-year-old part Ackelteckie, a beautiful mare named Hannah. And she had been lame at this point about 6 months. She had already seen two veterinarians and they'd already gone through the full workup, and she'd already tried resting a couple months and x-rays and ultrasounds and flexion tests and blocking. And the blocking, the blocks where you put it in their foot and it kind of makes it numb to see if that's the problem. It kind of worked. I know, like 50% better. So not great, but a little bit. So eventually both of these other veterinarians told my client Terry to take Hannah for an MRI if she ever wanted an answer, because she had already tried resting and they don't really have any other answers if they can't find the problem. So that makes sense. So because Terry wanted to take Hannah the horse Grand Prix that year, she'd been working so hard and she's a trainer. She took the horse for the MRI. They had to haul 4 hours one way. All right. And then do the MRI. And this was on the right hind. And when I had originally watched her walk, when I saw her, this was after the MRI, after 2 more months of resting, because the MRI was inconclusive except for one thing, which I'll tell you in a sec. I saw her, and she was on a lunge line, and she moved really pretty nicely, but to the right, she was short striding in the right hind, just a couple inches, and not with any real head bob, any real hip hike. She looked, if you weren't staring at her right hind leg, it looked fine. This is crazy, but yes. And Terry could certainly feel it and didn't want to be injuring her horse if there was something that could be fixed. So that's awesome. So she had done the veterinarians, done the MRI, done the 2 more months of rest recommended, because the only thing found on the MRI was at the right fetlock, and it was a a ligament. I'm trying to remember the exact words that it said on the form, but it was like enlarged and inflamed right fetlock collateral ligament. And it was just the one side, just on the right. So that the outside of the right rear fetlock. Okay, not that you care about exactly where it was, but the point is they found a little something, something. They said, hey, this is swollen and inflamed. We're pretty sure. You better just do what? Rest the horse. At this point, Terry's patience is like getting thin because she had already rested the horse on the advice of the first two veterinarians. And that didn't really seem to help much at all. But she did, I think, even more strict rest, like stall rest instead of paddock rest. Nonetheless, it's 6 months later. The horse is still exactly the same amount of lameness as she was 6 months ago. By the way, at this point, Terry is not only frustrated because of her horse, but because she's already paid, I think it was close to $7,000. And this was going on 20 years ago. So, right, sometimes people don't do MRIs because, gosh, you could buy another horse for that amount of money. I mean, that sounds terrible, but facts are facts. Expense is expense. So I looked at the horse, and because I had been sitting there complaining about the lack of MRIs, I thought, an MRI. This is wonderful. I will know right where it is, and then I'll be able to fix it. And so I had this ligament that's swollen and inflamed on an MRI. Right, I thought. I thought, unfortunately, I went ahead and told the client, I said, this is great. I'm sure that your fetlock is just misaligned, and all I have to do is realign it, and then it can start healing. Because if it's not aligned properly, then it can't heal, right? It's if it's tweaked or crooked, then there's going to be more strain on one tendon than the other. And Terry thought, okay, that seems reasonable. So I went to look at the horse's fetlock, and I pick it up and I move it through its range of motion, which is absolutely perfect. I thought, oh, uh-oh. Okay, then I thought, okay, maybe it's in the sesamoids, right? The two little bones that are right behind the fetlock. They're fine. I checked the pastor and the coffin bone. I'm looking all over. None of this lower leg stuff has any problem that I can find. And Terry's looking at me and I'm like, oh crap, why didn't I look at the horse first and then talk about how wonderful this is going to be? Yeah, that's my life. Okay, I learned slowly. So, long story short, all right, I checked everywhere. What I did find though was the hip. The hip joint itself was really misaligned. So I said, Terry, I got this. This hip joint itself is really misaligned. We do have some other things, sacroiliac, tight lumbar, but I think those are compensating for the hip. And I said, and Terry, I think this fetlock ligament issue is also compensating for the hip. She's like, well, okay, we'll just do what you can. Let's see. So I aligned all that, straightened it all out. Horses doing the thoracic lumbar wiggle beautifully. So then, just on a whim, we took her back out to the arena where I could see her walk and trot. Guys, that short stride totally went away. And that's kind of one of the reasons I remember this case from like 20 years ago, because I was not expecting that. I usually expect to work on things and the body takes a few days to process and detox if needed and strengthen up. But this was right away. Immediately, the short stride was gone. And both Terry and I were just like looking at each other like, well, should we go with this? I mean, I would be wondering too, is it going to keep holding? And I said, look, Terry, let's just give it some time. I think that Hannah is now moving properly and she needs a little time, nice and easy work to get her moving and stretching like she used to before this all started. Okay. So I rechecked her in 30 days. She's still fine. She never took a lame step after that. It's okay. So this is not about, oh, Renee did something. Okay, and it worked one time. All right. This is more about what I'd love for you to remember, if you haven't heard me say this already, is that by the time we can see or feel any offness or lameness or things that just aren't quite right, that's when the compensations are giving out. That fetlock ligament, which she found on the MRI, was in fact inflamed and enlarged because it was compensating for the hip. So whether or not you decide to do an MRI, that's one thing you want to keep in mind. Or frankly, any diagnostic test. What are you checking for? Are you checking to see where's the compensation? Compensations are often painful for sure, and we do want to help get rid of pain. But where's the real problem? One thing that we really talk about in TBT University is what's the primary? What is causing the problem? Because it's usually not the compensation. I mean, Terry spent, like I said, up to $7,000 just to find out where the compensation was. Well, luckily we got to fix that one. So that's good. You know, sometimes things go on for so long, it gets really tough to find the primary and fix the primary. But it all can be done with TBT if you have enough time. And by that, I mean, if a horse has been lame for 15 years, it can take a while to fix all the layers of compensations. And sometimes, you know, when the horse is 30 years old, you're running out of time. But other than that, all is well. You can fix pretty much everything, which is great. So what I want to really stress, again, you're like, I'm so tired of you telling me to find the why, Renee. Yes, I'm telling you, find the why. All right. Two other things about MRIs, if you are ever considering them. One is they are not innocuous. That means there are side effects to MRIs. You're thinking, no. I'm thinking, yes, dude. MRI means magnetic resonance imaging. So that big MRI machine that they put people in, and it's very loud and very cold. That's a huge, huge magnet. Well, what's it magneting? You, you or your horse, and it was magneting the actual hydrogen item. Sorry, hydrogen atoms, which have a positive, like a battery. They have a positive. They're a positive atom. So they get pulled over. I should say ion. Sorry, chemistry. It's a long time ago. Anyways, those hydrogens get pulled over to one side and then let go, snap like a rubber band, and they bing, bing, bing around. And this is how your MRI picture is made by pulling all the hydrogen ions of your body over to one side with a magnet and letting go multiple hundreds and hundreds of times. So, who thinks this is a good idea? Not me. In fact, it has been shown that some people will get sick from this. They just don't feel like themselves. Sometimes it's temporary. I've met people like, I just feel so weird. I can't articulate it. I don't feel like me. I feel discombobulated. And it's been years now. Right. The other thing to know about MRIs is sometimes they want to do an MRI with contrast material. So this is where they inject something into your body so that they can see better on the MRI. I don't really know how they decide what to try, but currently they use gadolinium, which is a metal, a liquid metal. Doesn't that sound cool to have running around your veins, huh? And sometimes they use derivatives of that or derivatives of barium, also a metal that probably not a good idea, you know? Now, listen, I know that sometimes we get stuck. We are at a place, things hurt so much, or you're so sick, you got to do what you got to do. So I am never trying to tell people they are bad for doing something. I'm just trying to get you the information just in case you're deciding or in case you actually do feel sick. What was that? That big, strong movie star guy, Chuck Norris. Yes. Chuck Norris, if you don't know, he did a lot of martial art movies. He was always awesome and he always won. And so he's like the cool guy. Anyways, he's a little bit older now, but his wife got very, very ill from MRIs, and it took quite a while to figure it out. She got an MRI, I believe, initially to check something about rheumatoid arthritis. I don't know why, but there you go. And they had used this contrast stuff, gadolinium. Well, like 8 days later or something, she's in the emergency room because of so much pain. She says she is literally just burning on the inside, just burning. And later on, it felt like ants crawling all over her. And because they're trying to figure this out, they do another MRI with more contrast stuff. And she's just getting sicker and sicker. She said, this is on the YouTube on a news channel. She said it on, I think it was NBC. Anyways, she's telling the whole story, and she got sicker and sicker till she couldn't swallow. Her muscles were atrophying. Her ribs were all like stuck together like glue. She had to abdominally breathe. It was horrible. She spent 5 months in an integrative medicine clinic. 5 months with Chuck Norris on the couch with her the whole time. I mean, he is awesome. Just trying to actually chelate and detox her from all that gadolinium. So she would have died had they not figured that out. Until someone says, no more MRIs, I am sick, someone else help me. And they found someone to help her. So my point is twofold. Try to avoid MRIs. Say, well, Renee, plenty of people do it. They do. They really do. Do you know that the X-ray was invented in 1895? And then it was about 1920 where they finally officially realized there were problems with x-rays and instituted all of the lead vests to protect us from x-rays. So that's about 25 years. The MRI, I think I looked it up. It was first made in 1977, but was not in widespread use like we're used to now till the 1990s. So we're looking at right in that 25, 30-year time frame where some people know something's going on with MRIs, but it's still not well observed and documented. So if you have to, see, I'm going to say you have to, okay, but you don't have to. Hopefully that made sense. What I mean by that is if you're at a point and your doctor or your vet says, hey, we need an MRI, you know what? That might give you some good information. So it's going to be obviously your choice. Please take into account that is moving all the hydrogen atoms of your body around. And if they use contrast, they're sticking something that makes you ill inside of you. To my knowledge, they're not doing that with horses yet. If anyone has had contrast material in an MRI with their horse, please let me know. Try to avoid them, the MRIs, because they're not necessarily innocuous. They're not at all innocuous. Instead, there's other choices, guys. There's choices of alternative medicine, lots of modalities, integrative medicine, holistic, all types of ways to go instead of continually following traditional medicine. The MRI is just kind of an example of traditional medicine where we love technology. I mean, it is cool. I got to see my client's MRI with that horse. And I thought, this is great. I can see everything here. This is so wonderful. But I didn't know at the time that there was anything potentially negative with MRIs. And that was when I first started realizing that, yeah, I have something in an MRI, which costs thousands of dollars, but that's not the problem. So keep that in mind. Now, at this point, I realize you might be frustrated with me talking. Say, Renee, I can't find the problem. My vet can't find the problem. I don't know what the problem is. Guys, besides many alternative modalities, there is mine, TBT, Tucker BioKinetic Technique. You can learn it. Let me give you an example. My prerequisite course is called What Does My Horse Want? It's just energy, the fact that we are positive and negative energies, just like a battery. And yes and no, those questions work like a battery. I know it doesn't make sense. That's why there's a course. But here's my point. Let's just pretend for a moment, shall we, that Terry knew how to do yes and no questions because she took my course. She could say to herself, remember, yes and no questions, it takes a minute to best phrase them. She would ask, is my horse's primary problem for this lameness I see in the fetlock area? And she would have gotten a no, because that's not the primary cause of her lameness. And then she could have gone up the leg and said, well, okay, is my horse's primary cause of lameness in this leg in the hock? Yes or no? Is it the stifle? Yes or no? Is it the hip? Oh, ding, ding, ding. It's the hip. What the heck? What can I do about the hip? All right. And then you have plenty of alternative modalities. Certainly TBT can take care of that. But you have better options than to just keep going with the diagnostics, because they tend to run into a dead end, or they give you the answer for the compensation. So please try to do that. The world is changing. We are really running into a dead end with diagnostics and tests. And when they don't have an answer, they do them all over again. So great. And they just kind of run up the bill, not on purpose. It's just because they're lost and they're hoping maybe this time the test will tell them something different. But the world is changing. We're changing over to energy related stuff. As I've been saying, computers are going to quantum computers. Banking is going to a quantum system. Healing, I believe, is going to more energy type. I can't really call it medicine. What do I call that? Let's just go with energy medicine because I can't think of anything right now. So, yeah, join us. We're going this way. The other way is a dead end. In the maze of healing, traditional medicine has an endpoint. We want to keep going till we can find exactly where's the problem and then fix that. Thank you for listening. Please let me know if you have any questions about MRIs or anything like that, and I'll talk to you guys next time.